Welcome, Ahmad Vital, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. So today I have you on as a mental performance coach, and you do so much more than that. I want to let everyone know you have a list, a laundry list of amazing things that you have accomplished in your life. So when I saw you do motivational speeches and podcasts, I said I have to have you on because you're going to bring so much wisdom and so much value to the audience. Without me talking about your whole history and everything you have accomplished, can you please tell the audience who you are, what you do, and how you help them?
Thank you, Michael, for that. I mean, the main thing is that at this point in time, I work mainly with young adults. Let's just say the age groups of older teenagers, 17 through the age of like 28, and I just help them sort of level up that next level of life, whether it is coming out of high school, going to college, going into the real world. I'll do a lot of mental performance coach work with them. Get them to set the boundaries of what it is that you want out of life and what's going to be the best possible way to get there. When you deal with a lot of young people who are, you can say, trying to look at the difference between what they're passionate about and what's going to make them money, it's always a good fine line between there. And I like to help them sift through those things. And as an author, speaker, and mental performance coach, I'm able to do all of those things through the proven principles, going all the way back to, the biblical times and, recent as Napoleon Hill and a lot of the great philosophers of today. And so I like to really work with them because I like to look at the idea that the future is ahead of us. And right now, our young people are probably the most confused they've ever been in human history. And I like to be that old enough to have the wisdom, but not young enough to be out of touch. And whether it's through nonprofits or through the ministry, through the church and different things of that nature, I'm right at a perfect place to be able to work with them. And I always look forward to coaching and consulting with them and also speaking on their turf, whether it's in colleges, high schools, and different areas where young people congregate.
The work that you do is so important. It's essential, not only because helping these young men understand that their future has some meaning, to find some direction, more so than just a wallet, because a lot of people, they look at, well, what's going to make me money, right? This job is going to make me money, but it might not bring fulfillment. Sometimes I get emails from high schoolers, and there might be 17, 18 years old seniors, or maybe even juniors, right? But typically it's a senior. And they say, I'm worried or I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake. What should I do with my life? And they are just so afraid to make a mistake where they're just not willing to go out, try something, fail at it. And then they say, you know what? I'm okay, right? You said something that's important. We are dealing with a generation who is not equipped to handle what the world is about to give them, right? They have been babied. They have been soft in our life, right? I mean, we have a homes that everything is done for us, right? We don't need much. We don't have to go out and hunt for our food or go out and fight for our fights. We can be keyboard warriors now. We don't have to be physical warriors anymore. So a lot of people, they don't understand their true value, their true worth, especially men. So men have the option now. Do I show up or do I not show up? Do I choose strength or do I choose weakness? Do I choose to be a hero or do I choose to be the villain in my life? And what's happening is that we are looking at the easy path. What is the easy path for us? So if we don't have to show up, if we don't have to be courageous, if we don't have to be the hero, because all that takes a lot of energy and the brain knows it. The brain is saying, what are you doing? This is too much work. You could just stay at home, play some video games with your friends online, and we could be good. We could be good, but that's not life. There's going to be a point at some time in that man's life, especially in the young man's life, that he's going to hit a wall or hit rock bottom, and he's going to have no other alternative but to show up. But that is too late at that point because you already wasted maybe 5, 10 years. How do you help these young men or young women begin to show up at an earlier age rather than waiting until they have a trauma or a life circumstance to have no other option but to show up?
That's a great question, and I am faced with that on many a times, and obviously working in the team ministry, I have the honor of seeing some young men who were 13, 14 years old, and so sometimes I can get to them early. And the thing that I've always done, whether it's through ministry or through coaching, which now sort of blurred the lines between the two, because principles are principles. I don't not concerned about the feelings of, well, I don't understand that. Well, we're going to get you to the point where you do. The bottom line is that, especially for men, like there has to be a moment of where life is just rough, right? We have to have that. That's why, whether you're talking about, the coddling of the American mind, where, young dudes aren't going out and playing in the yard. We're not playing kill the man with the ball. We're not picking up sticks and things of that nature. Those are all developmental things that we need, right? Going outside, riding bikes, just the idea of conquering each other in an interesting way. If you really think about it, life as a whole hasn't changed that much from the standpoint of where we are biologically. Men are called to provide and protect, and a lot of times in that protection, it means what? We need to go to battle for something we care about, and that part of society has been taken out. You're absolutely correct. We've gotten to the point where, I mean, without going too far back, once you break apart the family, then I mean all bets are off. And we are probably 4 generations, 5 generations in on that, where the softening of men, and then you take that and you mix it in with the feminist movement and things of that nature, where it's just like, get in touch with with your softer side or whatever. And I'm not saying that men are just supposed to go out there and just fight every day, but we do need to go out and fight every day, right? And maybe it's not a physical fight. Maybe it's an ideological fight. Maybe it's a cultural fight. Maybe it's a spiritual fight. But the bottom line is that the fight in young men has just been decimated, right? Telling them, hey, you're too aggressive. Aggressive is what built this country, built this world. And a country full of soft and, feeling word here, men who just are not willing to go out and endure, right? We need the struggle. You spoke earlier about, they're afraid to go out and make a mistake. I want you to make the mistake. You have to make the mistake. In fact, it's part of the journey, right? You can't go through and have things figured out. Whether you're talking about, how a diamond is created, how metal is forged. I mean, that's what's needed, especially for young men. There is no easy path for a young man because there's no safety net for you. There's no, I don't want to attack life. Eventually, life is going to attack you. And you need to go head first into that. You need to, maybe grab the car keys when your folks tell you not to. Maybe you need to explore and go in that area with your bike where it's like, hey, it may be dangerous out there. You need a little bit of edge and danger in your life because that's what it's going to call you to be. You need to scuff your knee up. You need to get bit by ants. You need to get stung by wasps, bees. You need to, sprain an ankle. You need all of those experiences to bring you to a place where you gain the wisdom. How else are you going to gain wisdom other than through trial and error, right? And without going too biblical or philosophical or whatever, but every great person in the word, in the Bible, all had to endure. They all had to go through struggles. They all had to go through triumphs to become what they became. That is what men have to do. We don't just show up ready-made to be able to take on life. Life has to sort of form us, teach us by mistakes, by, man, this didn't work out, by, getting hurt, losing money, trying something new. It didn't work. Try something else. Go back in the lab, figure things out. But you initially have to take that initial blow, that initial blunt to the head. Like there's no way around that. There is no path to where you are not going to face adversity. We need adversity. Someone asked me recently, like, hey, I work with a lot of families. I work with a lot of, mothers who have young children, who have children in school. And it's like, what do young men need? And I was like, they need something with competition. They need the opportunity. And of course, sports is a great way to do that. They need somewhere where they have some accountability. They have some teamwork. They have some discipline. They have something that if they don't do what is asked of them, there's a consequence. Meaning you don't show up to practice, you don't get to play in the game. You are part of a team, meaning if you don't do your assignment, you may lose, right? And one of the main things, and obviously somebody's gonna be like, well, my son's not very athletic. You know what? Let's go ahead and figure that out. Maybe give him a year or two, let him go out there, be kind of fumbling or whatever. But the bottom line is, even if you don't go into sports, what I will say is that you need, especially for a young man, what you need is the opportunity to do something where there's a clear winner and a loser, where there is a clear winner and a loser, because we need that, right? It's not enough to just be like, because I remember when I think my nephew's 20 years old now. And I remember when he was like 7 years old, he was in some different leagues, and I was just like, hey, how'd he do? And my sister was like, hey, he scored like 4 or 5 goals. And I was like, man, they must have won by a lot. It's like, well, they don't take score. Why are they not taking score? It's like, well, everyone wants to feel included. And I was like, I don't like this. Get him out of this league. Get him out of that league immediately. I want my nephew to feel the joys of victory, but I also want him to feel what it's like to get defeated. Like, we need that. You need the idea of a winner and a loser, a clear winner and a loser, because the sting of the loss is what brings us to a place where we overcome. Because now we have to go into, perspective. What happened as to why this didn't happen? Obviously, sometimes you just go against someone who's just better than you, and you accept that. But you also accept the idea that there's more that I can do to get myself together to be able to be in better position to win at this game. I share with people, I ran track. My dad put me in track when I was like 10 years old. And, I was pretty good, but there were some times where I was in a heat where it didn't work out so well for me. And there's a lesson that cannot be learned other than sitting in the backseat of the car and you're holding a fifth place ribbon, right? And you're sitting up there and you're 10 years old. And my dad used to he was so pragmatic and stoic, and he used to just be driving. And, my mom might trying to say something, and my dad used to be like, don't say a word. Let him feel what this feels like. And the whole trip home is just quiet. And I'm sitting up there thinking about where did I go wrong? How did this happen? Maybe I had some tears in my eyes at some time because I was like embarrassed or something. That trip home is development for young men and is needed. And we're trying to remove that from them. That's lessons your parents can't teach you directly. That's where life is teaching you from the standpoint that you've invested time into this activity, into this sport, and you came out at the bottom. Now, what do we need to do different? Young men need that. And the fact that it's been taken from them is almost criminal. And so we need to get back to where you are dealing with life at that level.
The fact that everyone wins for participation, right? They all get a participation trophy. They all get a participation ribbon. For me, I'm not a fan of it either, because it doesn't show you the most important things in life, right? That's failure. That ride home, right? Where you got that fifth place ribbon and you're just there, you're just thinking, you're in your head. That's the best place for you to be. Because if you're not in your head, where are you, right? You're out in the world, wherever the world wants you to be, right? The world does a great job at moving you. A lot of people don't even realize that. All right, they wake up and by the end of the day, they're like, wait, what happened today? Right? If you ask a kid, what do you learn at school? I don't even know what I learned at school, right? Because they're not paying attention. They're just allowing the world to move them, right? They go to this class, they go to that class, they have to recite this type of information. They move on, right? They're not there for long term. So they only look at the short term, right? But life is not short term, right? Even though life is short, we can make long strides, right? So what I mean by long strides is that we don't have to have a year of struggle. We can have maybe a week of struggle, right? Think of like boot camp, right? They're not going off into the military and then all of a sudden they're in battle and they're struggling, right? They struggled for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, how long boot camp was. And now they're equipped, right? Not saying that they're 100% equipped, but they have that mindset where they were put into the ringer, right? People yelling at them, doing push-ups in the rain, in the mud, in the cold, right? Swimming in the cold, challenging themselves again and again and again. The navies have some of the most strict tests if you want to be in the Navy. People have to go through fear. They have to go through those mental blocks, and a lot of people quit. I think it's like 40 to 60% of people quit the test, not because they got hurt or anything, but because mentally they just can't keep enduring, right? It takes a certain type of person to endure, and not everyone is going to have that ability. Now, I will say there are ways that you can endure better. For me, it's like you have to go through it. Think of ice baths, right? The first time you take an ice bath, ooh, this is real cold, right? You do it again. Okay, this is still cold. But you do it for a week, a month, a year. That ice water is not cold anymore. You're in there, you're having a conversation. You might be doing a Zoom meeting or whatever. it does not affect you. But in the beginning, it does. So just like that cold water, we have to acclimate to our environment. So if our environment, like our world right now, is very weak and is very plush, then we can either acclimate to that temperature, or we can say, you know what, I want to either get it real, real hot, or I want to get it real, real cold. So ice baths or Bikram yoga, you can choose your beast, but you're going to find that in either extreme, you're going to be challenging yourself and you're going to fail some days. And it's a good thing that you give up some days because you learned from where you are to where you're going to be. Because I think so many people are worried about where they want to be. They're not even worried about where they are. If you're weak right now, how can you get strong? Because everyone seeks strength, but they don't do the things that what strength is. Everyone wants to be an NFL player, an NBA player. But do you understand how much work those individuals put in to be on that team? One time I had a young man, he was 16 years old. He came to me, he said, Michael, I want to be the best soccer player in the world. I said, okay, that's easy. I said, tell me your favorite player. He told me his favorite player. I said, what does he do for practice, his practice regimen? He told me, I say, triple that. Okay, just triple that and come talk to me when you're done. First week goes by. I said, tell me about the results for your practice this week. Oh, I didn't do anything. But you told me you wanted to be the best. You told me you wanted to be the best. So why did you not even practice one time or two times? Just as much as your favorite player, right? It's hard. I don't have any time, right? The excuses take over. As long as the excuses are going to run your life, then you're going to not run into good things in your life. So you need to learn, how can you be better than your excuses? How can you be better than where the world wants for you, right? You get to choose for that. When you're working with these young men or women, it doesn't matter. Do you find that parents might be the problem? Or do you think that maybe schools and the indoctrination of how they learn in the logistic sense rather than the more intuitive sense, like looking on the inside, seeing what they can do rather than what they are doing? Do you think one or the other plays a critical role, or do you think equally both play an important role and then a detrimental role?
Oh wow, that's a very loaded concept you threw out there, and both of them are destructive. Obviously, early on, when a lot of my early mental performance coaching was all tied in with football recruiting, coming off my days with Fox Sports, Scout.com, and different entities working with college football players, high school going into college football players, and I used to do a lot of work in that. And interestingly enough, the parents were a lot of the issues, and of course, most of the times where there was the most issues were the single mother situations. Overwhelmingly, that was a major issue because many a times, we're going through the discovery process, trying to figure out how did we get here, whatever. Because a lot of times, many people don't take the time to do any type of introspection, any time of what I call taking personal inventory of your life, like you know your life is kind of garbage. Okay, well, you weren't born garbage. So, like, how did you be surrounded by garbage? And so, when you get to unpacking your life, like, especially when I deal with young men who are borderline homeless, they're just down and out, I always go back and say, hey, when did you feel like you were winning? Like, take me to a time when maybe you were on top of things and what was going on there. Now, obviously, sometimes it's been 10 years, but we try to see what was going on in his life to be able to sort of work in reverse. Because obviously, if you're in your 30s now, it's not the same thing you can do when you were 17. However, we can look at the mindset and be able to sort of scale that up. But when it comes to parents, what I can say probably happens, I'd say at least 40% of the time, when we're going through the discovery process, many of the ladies will take a step back and say, "Oh my goodness, like we're here because of some of the actions I've taken." And I'm like, "Well, yes." And it's not like this is like a badgering session. We're trying to unpack as to how we got here. Because a lot of times when you're in a single family situation, hey, discipline is always a touchy subject. And of course, young men need discipline. And young men don't just need discipline from coaches, pastors, and people outside the home. Discipline needs to start inside the home. I know society's tried to teach us differently, but men and women are different. Shocker. I know. I just told your audience something revelatory. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a high-end psychologist. I mean, but you know what? I've been alive for more than 10 minutes, and men and women are different. What moves us is different. What a lot of our goals are. Some of them may cross over, whatever, but for the most part, if you leave men and women alone to their own vices, we are going to do different things. Shocker. I know. put it up on a billboard. You and I can make a lot of money off of the fact that we just discovered something new. But what ends up happening is the discipline issue. They realize that when you unpack it, that these young men are at a situation where you have to bring heat to young men. Remember, just like forging metal, men have to be tested and pushed. A lot of times, a lot of the mothers I was working with did not want to do that push. That the idea, like there were times when my father growing up, there would be times when he didn't talk to me for like 3 or 4 days because something didn't go right. And he was going to hold frame and be like, you're going to get your life together before I'm going to deal with you. My mom wasn't able to do that. My father was, right? My father would straight up just looking at, hey, food on the table. And that's all he would say. Come in here and get something to eat. And that's all he would say to me for a whole 24 hours, right? Because he wanted to let me know, like, hey, you've disappointed me in some type of way. You were disrespectful at school. You did something, and there's a price to pay for that. There's a trade-off. And the trade-off is that you are going to sit in there and you're going to figure out how to become the respectful young man I raised you to be, because right now you are not acting like that. And I'm going to teach you a lesson by any means necessary, whether it means removing something that you enjoy, or it's going to be I'm freezing you out in my house. One of the two things. And whether you agree with those methods or not, he was a Vietnam guy and there was certain ways he did certain things. He didn't do the same thing for everything, but he did make sure that the lesson was going to be learned and I was going to feel all of it. And we need that, right? So the parents do play a critical role. Parents play a critical role in everything we're going on because everything begins at home. Everything we have begins in the destruction of the home, which has been, going on for quite some time. But I will say in recent years, as I've gotten older, things have tightened up politically and culturally and spiritually. I have started realizing how corrupt and detrimental the school system is as well. I will always say that home is first because home is the foundation of all of society. Broken homes means your society is completely in a fallen state. I'll definitely say there. I would probably say the school system is definitely in the top 3 of the next level. Not only are they not teaching you how to be better at life, there's in many situations, the school is doing everything to turn students against their parents, right? There is a level of indoctrination going in there, whether it's, of a sexual nature, whether it's from an ideological nature, whether it's from a political nature. Like all of these things are going on in the school system and it's not good, right? It's like, wait a minute, you look at some of the school systems across the country, East Coast, West Coast, the South. Like there's young men who are like 16 years old and can't read, there's girls who don't know how to do like basic things in a home or maintain certain things. And it's like, wait a minute, like there were certain basic classes that I came up with. I mean, I'm a 70s child. I'm probably, in the middle of in the age range of some of your audience, but there were certain things, economics, home economics, teaching how to just do basic things, the trades. How do you change a tire, right? How do you just sweep? I literally went to college with guys who didn't know how to pick up a broom, don't know how to mop. And it's like, wait a minute. I literally picked up a broom by the time I was walking because I was in charge of cleaning up. So these responsibilities, and that's what it really comes down to, Michael, is that we have removed accountability and responsibility away from kids. And we've completely taken discipline off the table. And when you take discipline off the table, all bets are off. Like you said, you wake up and you become worldly. Like, oh, it's just, the YOLO. Oh, let's just do what we want, turn up. And, I even heard one politician say, yeah, we need to be free where we can sit around and paint. And I was like, and then do what? Right? And do what? We're going to sit around and finger paint for hours. Then what are you going to do with the other 20 hours of the day? Right? And so you sit there and you're listening to these people and you realize like, wow, this indoctrination is so deep. And then you wonder, you come out of school and then you go to the advanced indoctrination at the college level. And, we probably don't have time to get into that level of indoctrination. And they come out, no wonder they're upset. They've been lied to for like 15 years of their lives because the home is broken. Dad is doing whatever he can do. Mom is doing whatever she can do. Or maybe mom or dad is not there. And so then, some ideological zealot teacher gets in your head when you're in 3rd grade. And then it's just like every year it's just like, oh, Michael, you're such a victim. We feel so sorry for you. We don't need to test you on your math skills because, you've just had it so hard. And things just haven't worked out for you. And it's just like, think about how many kids are dealing with that type of situation. Some of them are probably ending up in your inbox of, woe is me, I'm a victim because I've been told I'm a victim your whole life. And no man has pulled you aside and being like, this ends today, right? I work with a lot of nonprofits, and there's always one or two youngsters who's like, I'm going to test, the indoctrination on this man. And it's like, I have no problem putting a 7-year-old out of my class. Not a problem at all. I don't care if you start crying. I don't care if you have a powder. You know what? You can sit right there at the front door until you decide that respect is going to enter this room, right? Because no one has ever told you enough to care about you to tell you that not only are you loved, but I want you to be great. But great starts with order. Great starts with discipline. Great starts with structure, which we've completely abandoned all of those from the parental side and from the school side. So I completely agree with you from the standpoint that like both of those things are extremely destructive outside of the media and other things. But I think the two foundational pillars that are both going in the wrong direction start at home and in school.
For me, my past life, I was a teacher and I saw firsthand what the school system did. I saw what a broken home could do. I saw what a single parent household can do. It all leads to people who are not equipped to handle the real world. That's what it comes down to, right? We're doing a full circle where we started in our conversation to now where we're going. So if they're not equipped, how can they get equipped, right? And the work that you do, right, is not only making them aware that they're not equipped, but helping them become equipped, because they're going to have teachers that are going to believe that they can't do something. They're going to have teachers that just kind of wave them on to the next grade, because what teachers do is they say, well, no longer my problem. So they pass them on. So that's why they can reach 16 years of age and not know how to read properly, because they have been passed on their whole entire life. Not my problem, not my problem, not my problem. Well, now it's going to be that young man's or that young woman's problem at some point. They just don't have the skill set. They don't have the knowledge or the wisdom. They might not even have the foundational parental figures in the house to help guide them. To have one parent, I mean, to have two parents, you're extremely lucky, but to have one parent that can juggle everything, I mean, you're still blessed. There's people who don't even have any guidance. What do? Right? They're going to be looking for teachers. They're going to be looking for people that they can listen to, ask questions to, and then look on the inside with what they have. We are not victims, right? Yes, I know society says you're a victim, but you are not a victim. You get to choose the outcome, right? If someone does something bad to you, or if life does something bad to you, or if you get a bad hand, you get to choose what you do with it. Do you give up? Or do you say, you know what? I'm not going to give up quite yet. There's so much more. There's so much left for me to do. So when you give yourself that ultimatum, I'm going to make a difference in my life, I'm going to make a change, rather than waiting for a Superman to come save you, or someone to come save you, or someone just to pass you along, or someone to say, oh, you poor thing, here's something for you. Life is not a wait until you get a hand me out. Life is go out and grab what you want. All right. You don't go to the grocery store, open up your basket and say, can you please give me some food? No, you pick out what you want. Life is like the grocery store. You get to pick out what you want, right? You're not going to pick the rotten fruit when you go over to the produce, or the vegetables that have a day left. You're going to go pick out the good stuff. So why don't we pick out the good stuff in life? Why don't we say, I want better in my life for myself? And it's not that you need to have the superficial things. I need the nice clothes. I need the nice cars or the big houses. Those are distractions, because you can live very minimal and then still have great things in your life. What is success to you? What is happiness to you? Questions that people don't even ask. And when I ask young men, especially young men, because a lot of young men work with me, I say, what are you doing for your future? Oh, I never thought about it. Why? Why don't you think about it yet? And these young men, they have parents who love them. So they have parents who love them, that love them enough to go get them coaching. And then I'm asking them the question, well, what are you doing for your future? Oh, I never thought about that. Because you have been protected again and again and again. When you're home, you're protected. That's why it feels good to be home. You're in your comfort zone. But when you go out and you ride your bike and you go out, hang out with the kids in the block, and then you guys start making fun of each other and you have to either run away or say something back, right? You stand your ground. And we have lost our footing. So we are ready to fall over, topple over, but we need to learn how to get back up and be strong. We need to learn how to fortify ourselves, not just our body, but our mind. because there's going to be a lot of people, maybe your parents, including your teachers, who might not have a belief in you. They might say, you're not going to amount to anything. You can't do that. It's impossible. But what you can believe, you can achieve. So if you have an idea or a thought in your head, go out and get it. Don't just take what you're given. You choose what you get. And that type of mentality is going to lead you to that top percent of people who know what they want in life, people who go and get what they want in life. You see audiences of people who want success or want their business to succeed, but they're not willing to do what they should be doing in order to get that. I often say there's two types of people in the world. There's people who kind of want it and people who really, really want it, right? Because everyone says, oh, I want this, I want this. But most often it's like they kind of want that because maybe they were told that they needed it. A lot of people who have iPhone 14 or whatever we're on right now, they get the iPhone 13 or 14. It's the same as the iPhone 13, just a little better camera, right? Why'd you need it? Because society said you needed it. So you kind of wanted it. You kind of needed it. But how about your future, your goals, your business growth? All of those things, you're not rushing out to get it the first day is out, right? You're waiting. You kind of want it. How can we switch our way of thinking? Regardless of our parents, regardless of the school system, regardless of mainstream media, how can we look at what we need to do in our life? And I think that's one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves. Because if you're just going to keep on moving in the paths that are given to you, you're going to find out at the end of life unhappy, unfulfilled, and full of regret. That's all you're going to have. You need to start to challenge the status quo, not saying to go out and start a war, but you need to figure out where is that line in your life? What are you going to accept and what are you going to challenge? Everything that we were talking about is on that line of challenge. People are afraid to be challenged or to challenge because that fear of loss, fear of failure, all of that is there. So we need to learn how to raise the bar. How do you help people raise the bar? How do you help people not be afraid of failure? How do you help people understand that they got more in the tank?
For starters, to realize that failure is part of the process. Don't try to avoid failure. In fact, lean into it and know that it's coming. I like the fact of the no victim because recently in the past year or so, I have had a couple of clients or a couple of opportunities have come and people have been homeless, which is just a whole nother ball game. Like we deal with teenagers who are just a little lost or whatever. Homelessness is a whole nother scenario, but you realize like at the end of it all, how much different is the homeless person than one of the teens or young adults we work with? Mentally, they're in the same place for the most part. It's just one of them's further down the trough in another direction. But lacking purpose, no direction, no goals, no guidance. The only difference is one is in a home and one is not a lot of times. I mean, there's other factors in there as well. But the main thing is that everything has to start in the mind. You're not a victim. Because there's one thing that I can't stand that is very, very prevalent these days is entitlement. Like no one owes you anything. As much as we want to say, your parents do owe you, and I think at some degree, parents do take the burden of, needing to raise you or whatever. But at the end of the day, the person who matters most is in the mirror. Because there comes a point in time, and it's an uncomfortable conversation. There comes a point in time that blaming your parents or your family situation is just off the table. I know it's just like, well, I was promised this, I was promised that. I was like, the only thing, as long as you have life, that's what the main thing is. But the main thing, one of the things that I deal with first is dissolving that entitlement of how did we get here to not look at any others, to not look at anyone else, to not blame anyone else because you are not a victim. I do agree some kids have been born into some pretty rough situations and my heart goes out to them. But I also don't let that get in the way of, all right, the road for you is going to be a little different for other people, right? And I think that's culturally and societal way of looking at certain things. It's like we seem to think that everyone's going to cross the finish line, not only at the same time, but with the same stuff, right? We're trying to socially engineer where everyone ends up with the same thing. And it's like, no. The interesting thing is society has filled people's heads, especially a lot of these youngsters in these indoctrination camps called public schools, that there's a level of equality. And that just doesn't exist. And it's never existed in human history, right? I know we think that, like, oh, equal opportunity, equal outcome, and all those things like that. I'm not even sure if there's such thing as equal opportunity, right? Because I don't know anything about your family. You don't know anything about my family. But let's just throw a name out there. Dr. Dre's kid will have opportunities we're not privy to. Perhaps, he may have people who have already accomplished may have opportunity. The CEO of Google, his kid may have opportunities that we don't even know about. And so when we start talking about this equality thing, like, that just doesn't exist. It's sort of like the whole No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind means no kid goes forward. And that used to be a real huge thing in the public school system. Like, we can't leave anyone behind. Yes, someone's going to get left behind because not everybody learns at the same pace. And you can't hold the whole classroom up because one kid's just not getting it. Like, my mother was a teacher for 42 years, and she used to have students in her class, and she was just like, this young man's never working at NASA. And it's not like you treat them any differently, but you do treat them differently and say, hey, let me put them on different types of tasks than the rest of the class. Of course, yes, you need to still make sure that they're doing the coursework, but at some point you have to understand what that student is about and what moves them. And so she would take a lot of them and they would be more helper to the class as opposed to diving in deep to some intellectual book that this kid has no chance to be able to figure out. And I'm not saying it like you just completely don't teach him at all, but you teach him something that he could be a functional person in the society, right? And I think that's where, of course, the trades come in, different types of professions that need to be taught at the public school because, right, like half of the stuff you learned in public school, you don't even need in the real life anyway. And the thing you need most, they don't teach at all, which is called money, because everybody's got to do that. Everybody has to have insurance. Everybody has to own a car at some point in time. Yet you don't teach the basic necessities of life. You teach a bunch of stuff that doesn't even matter. And so we have to teach and understand that, like, you can't avoid different things. You have to lean in on it, but you have to be willing to endure to be able to make things happen. If they're down and out, I like to focus on entitlement for sure, but also to get them to a place. I use two words: gratitude and service. Gratitude is the idea of looking around and saying, I'm not going to use profanity, but I'll use a somewhat of a strong word. You look around and say, all of this around me kind of sucks. All of it. Or so you think. And it's like, is there anything good within this pile of junk I have going on here? It's like walking through like an old storage closet at your grandparents' house that's been untouched for 30 years. And you're just like, wow, it's a mess in here. Well, some people's lives are like, you say, I'm grateful for what? Grateful for life. Grateful that I could have been, it could be worse. And it's like, well, it's looking pretty bad. Yeah, but it could be worse. And so gratitude is one of the first things that I teach, whether I'm teaching young men, whether I'm teaching adults, it doesn't matter. Gratitude is where we start. Looking in the mirror saying, I'm grateful for this person and all who helped me to get here. Because you didn't get there alone, which, we'll probably get on that later. Like, no one lives life alone. You need community, right? That's a whole nother deeper conversation. And also service. What do you bring to the table that can be positive for someone else? Is there a skill you have? Is there a service you provided? Is there a product you've created? Is there something you do? Is there a job you're doing that's going to be beneficial to the whole of the community, to the whole of a company, the whole of any different things, a school, whatever that's going to be? I start off with those two things for a reason, because your purpose may just start off with the idea that you can do this small task, but someone needs that small task done. I don't like when people like demean someone as beneficial as the person who collects carts at the grocery store. That's an extremely beneficial service. It's like, oh, well, he's just a cart. Yeah. Have you ever been in a parking lot where there's no cart wrangler? It's a mess. They're in the way of the cars. There's no carts in there for people to shop with. That person has a very important job. We as society has just looked at that. It's like, oh, that's lesser. Based on what? What is that lesser based on? That is a functional job needed to make sure that grocery store or that place of business can function properly. And when you get people to shift their mindset and think about things from that standpoint, life can just change and turn around really quickly. But we have to understand that when we're going through life, everything is not about what makes you happy. See, we've lied to a lot of people, just like, oh, go out and live your best life, self-love and this and that. Sometimes you don't like yourself very much. There's going to be a period of that where you're going to go through a portion of life where you're just the trials. Like you said, some people have gone through an extended boot camp, and that's usually a spiritual and mental thing where they're just torn apart. Life is seasons, and there'll be a season where, it's rough. Maybe you're at your company and you're working on a gigantic project. Well, for the next 3 weeks, things are going to be rough. You're putting in 16, 18-hour days. Do the math, that leaves you 4 hours of sleep, right? Whatever that looks like, you have to be willing to understand and adopt the fact that sometimes life is not going to just be roses. It's not going to be a yellow brick road. And once you get to the point where you treat life and classify it in, this is a season for this is a season for growth, this is the season where I'm going to be in the lab. You have a podcast. I'm pretty sure there was a time when you had to disconnect from technology and get pen and pad and say, okay, what is going to be my platform? How am I going to lay this out? What equipment do I need? There comes a time when it's like you need to disconnect and identify not only what you want, but what do you need to accomplish this? And people want to skip that step and just be like, oh, well, I deserve this. Oh, I need to be doing this. Oh, I need to be making this. I always jokingly say, when I came out of college, I worked at a community newspaper making $17,700. That was in 2004, right? I was making more money at a sports bar in college than after I get a degree and come back to Houston and I'm working. And I remember telling my father, I'm just like, man, I can't live in Houston for $17,700. And he said, yes, you can, and you will. And I was upset. I'm like, dude, are you crazy? He said, if you learn to live at $17,700, you'll never be broke again. Get your budget together, get what you need, the bare necessities. And I remember that lesson learned, and I was just like, my goodness. And lo and behold, I did do that. And of course, my father did help out a little bit. At that time, there was some work that he allowed me to do while he was overseas, which brought in an extra $500 a month. But if you do the math, that's $23,700. It's a big difference, but in the big scheme of things, you're still below the poverty line. But I learned how to live there. And every time, and he's like, every time you get a raise, don't increase your living. Don't increase your living. Don't increase your living. And those are the type of things where discipline comes in, right? It's like, well, I'm down and out. Maybe you just haven't tightened the reins on what you already have going for you. And you haven't accepted the fact that sometimes this is not going to be the way you want it to be for this season. Like, you're not going to stay in the valley forever, but sometimes you're going to be in the valley and you may not have a flashlight, right? Going back to those times when you have to look at all this around you and be like, where is the win here? And you grasp onto that one thing and you say, okay, let's just work this. What they say, you don't have to see the full, all you need is one step. You don't need to see the full staircase, right? What did Jesus tell every one of his disciples? Hey, put all your stuff down, put this life down that you have right now and follow me. Yeah, but I got a whole lot of stuff going on. Yes, I'm bringing you to something greater. You don't see it now, but follow me and I'll show you. When you get to the point where you understand that delayed gratification is one of the greatest blessings that can ever come into your life, you begin to see things from a whole different perspective, where you say, you know what? It took me 25 years to get a 6-month break. I've been building towards this. But like you said, we've taken that out of there. We've told kids like, hey, you deserve this. You deserve based on the value you bring and nothing more than that. No one deserves anything. I want to earn your business. I don't deserve it. I want to earn your respect. I don't deserve it, right? I want to put myself in a position to where you love me. I don't deserve it, but I've done things to where now it will come back to me. And when you take that piece out of it, you take delayed gratification out of it, you place entitlement and I deserve and I want it now into the scenario, that's when you have problems. And that's where we are. We're 30, 40 years into that nonsense of a mindset, which is why we have kids who, I ain't working for $30,000. Are you worth more? Are you even worth the 30? That's where we are now. And it baffles me that that's where we are, but glad there are a few fighters of us left. We're doing what we can, with the work I do. I love what I do, but I realize that I'm not going to reach everyone. And I'm okay with that at this point in time.
Life is not one of those things where we look at our circumstances alone. We see everyone else's life too. Why do they have this and I have this, right? So the comparing starts at a young age. Oh, they got this new bike. Why do I got this? Right? I got this old system. And we fail to understand the process or the journey. For me, I grew up in the ghetto, in the hood. What I can tell you is I learned many things that my son will never experience. I hope he never experienced them, but then at the same time, how can I have him learn that wisdom? Because I'm not going to allow that in my home, in my life, again, because I have elevated myself to that. But it wasn't because I was entitled to it. It was because I earned it. I worked for it. I understood about it. Things about the ghetto, losing friends because of drugs, violence, right? I hope he doesn't experience that, right? But if he sees it, right, he's going to learn from it. Growing up with no electricity in the home, I hope he doesn't experience that. But if he did, he will learn from it. Having to scrounge up some of your allowance, look in the sofas to get some food to eat, he probably won't have to go through that. But I hope he understands the path that I was on and he learns from it. Entitlement is the mindset of a person who thinks that they're owed something. Mom, dad, you have to take care of me because you brought me into this world, right? That's your job. That's your duty. My mom and my dad, they worked 2, 3 jobs just to make ends meet, to try to give us some life, some good life. But I remember, just being in the home, the furnace is always broken. So we always just had to get some space heaters and huddle in a room. And if we didn't have electricity, we would have to go over to our grandma's house because there's no way you're going to survive up in New England in the winter, especially if you got little kids. That right there, I always talk about that. I always remember that. And I always appreciate that because I could have said, why don't we have any heat? Why can't we be like my friend across the street who has heat or this person who has a nice house, right? I could have said that. But then we get into the realm of privilege. Everyone has a different upbringing. So you were talking about the kids of Google or the kids of Dr. Dre, right? That's privilege, right? At some point, they learn entitlement, but it's the privilege aspect. When you're looking at someone, do you see them for who they are, for what they can do for you? Most people look for what they can do for me. So that person who's pushing carts in the parking lot, they can't do anything for me. That janitor who's sweeping up, they can't do anything for me. I'm looking for the CEO because they can do something for me. They can give me a job. They can give me a chance, some work. But we fail to understand the human aspect. Community, right? Community is what creates the individual because there's going to be so many different experiences when you huddle together and a community works together is going to learn together too. We have separated ourselves from being communal people. Yes, we are in groups, but we're in a group of like-minded people. So if you're in a group of fools, you are now a fool yourself. Now we have taken away the learning aspect of being in a group that we're going to learn from. We can learn from that janitor. We can learn from that guy who's pushing carts. The CEO might not know everything. Yes, they might have some level of success, but at that point, I'm sure they have secretaries, people who are doing most of the managing, and they're just doing the decision making, right? Yes, you need to have that foundation, that structure to build up to that. But everyone sees the goal. They see the finish line. I want that. You need to earn that. And I said it before, I'll say it again. You need to earn it. Just because you have a good life today, you got credit cards, maybe, you got a PS5 or whatever is popular. You have all the things that make you feel happy right now. But when the latest and greatest comes out, you have to have it. Otherwise, you're behind in the times. That's entitlement because you're like, I'm owed this. I need this new device or new game system. But you don't understand the sacrifice that has to happen for you to be there. That's privilege. So understand that you are privileged at this point. But most people are so privileged or so entitled that they're just going to let all of what they have crumble. Oh, I didn't know I had to do maintenance on my car. I didn't know I needed oil change. Oh, I didn't know I needed to do the septic system or whatever for your home, right? Everything is in front of you. Everything is taken care of. You need to learn from the ground, from the people who might not be able to bring you any value. You learn from them. Then you learn from the people who can bring you value. You learn from them. And you can choose where you want to be at the end of the day, but understand that you're not above or beneath anyone. It's not that we're saying, oh, everyone's equal. No, no, no. You don't have to be equal in that sense. You have to just understand the human potential for greatness. He or she has the same capabilities that I have. Not talking about biological, right? There's certain things men can do and certain things that women can do. There's a difference, okay? I'm talking about the human potential aspect. They achieved great success. I think I can achieve great success. We're not looking at people to say, well, why are you not successful? Why are you pushing carts? There's a transition period in your life. Everyone's going to go through it. Some people are going to go through it head first. Some people are going to walk through the door nice and easy. I wish I can say, everyone, here's the door, here's the key, go have a good life. Some people need to learn the hard way. And if you have the mindset of being entitled, you're going to learn the hard way, most likely. Take a step back. Look at your community. Look at the people around you. Where can you learn something new? How can you put yourself in an uncomfortable spot where it's like, oh, I'm beneath what I thought, right? Because there might come a point in your life where I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent or the mortgage. You're homeless. But just because that happened in your life, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means you learned the hard way. We all learn some way. Some people like to learn the hard way. Some people like to learn the easy way. Wisdom is the easy way. Community is wisdom, because the more people you have, and then especially looking at the elders or the older people in that community, you learn so much. We're so quick, especially today. We get our parents. Thank you, mom and dad, for doing what you do. And you know what we do? We focus on our life. Mom and dad, you're too old to take care of yourself. Here, go to a nursing home. That's what they do. We have lost our traditional values in the sense of, if you have a parent who has raised you, taken care of you, now it's your time to take care of them. Now it's, oh, washing our hands. That's not our responsibility. You need to worry about that. We need to see family for what it truly is, something that doesn't separate with age. Yeah, I understand when you're young, you're looking at your future, but then at some point you have to look at your family too. Eventually you're in your 30s or 40s. Look at mom or dad. You're going to see they're walking a little bit slower, got a couple more grays in their hair. Are you just going to throw them somewhere and say good luck? Are you going to say, I'm going to take care of you? There's always going to be an opportunity for you to take care of someone who has done something for you, who has never done something for you. The character that you have is going to tell so much about you. For me, if I'm hiring someone and I see they got a bad character, you're probably not going to work for me. You have to understand, where are your values? I'm going to ask, tell me about your parents, especially if you're young. The job might be 30,000 or 60,000. It doesn't matter about the salary, but I'm going to ask, do you have the right mindset? Do you have the mentality essential or needed for a team? Everyone's working by themselves. I want to be the solo guy. I want to be the solo girl. Miss Independent. I want to be by myself. I want to be able to provide, protect, and do everything myself. We have been told again and again that we don't need anyone. We have told ourselves a lie that we don't need anyone. But community has shown us that we need people. You don't go to the grocery store and buy something. You didn't grow that. That was someone else. That was a farmer. They did that. So community is everywhere. You just don't pay attention to it. How can we begin to get community as the forefront in how we think, operate, and believe in? Because if we can work together, then we can start to collaborate together, and not so much in the sense of competition, but in the sense of utility, but not sense of the utility of what they can do for you, but what can we do together as a group? How can we get back the community that is traditional and that's going to be beneficial to change the trajectory that we're going in, maybe toward our destruction or toward that cliff, or however you want to view it, towards something more positive and better?
That is it's a great and a lofty goal. And I don't want to be the one to just reign. What, but we need to have a realistic conversation, because the bottom line is the only way that's going to happen is to rebuild the family. Like I don't know another way to do that, because you need the power of father and mother in the house to understand, to build up with other father and mother. Because it's almost like it's like taking a broken vase of just little bitty individual pieces, mom and three kids over here, dad with a single daughter over here. It's like all these, kid in foster care over here. Without the foundation of the family, you don't even know that community is needed, because you don't see community, right? And you're absolutely correct. Like the breakdown of community centers, the breakdown of the church system. It's like it gets to a point now where I go into these schools, these elementary schools, and you get a sheet of the kids or whatever, and let's just say it's a parents' night. Good luck. Good luck finding father and mother. Like We're to the point now where if you see a father and a mother, that's like we're rejoicing because it's rare. Like I think, regardless, obviously it breaks down different by race, but we're averaging, less than 50% of compacted homes going on right now. And community is so important. We're really big at that. At my church, we talk about that a whole lot about community. Because, I heard you say, hey, Miss Independent, hey, go get this bag or whatever. And it's just like, first of all, that's a lie. No one becomes successful by themselves. Oh man, I got it out the mud. I'm one deep, ain't no one in my passenger seat. You're lying. You're lying. And stop lying to others because no one gets successful by themselves. No one does. And I like the idea you were talking about, we brought the card guy back up. In my book, I talked about one of the impactful things I saw growing up as a kid, because my mother's been a school teacher all these years. And I used to always wonder every school she went to, why there was so much favor she had with the cafeteria workers and the janitors. Like they absolutely loved her. And I was like, and I remember one day because in the younger grades, obviously our school was like 30 minutes from the house. So if mom stayed after, I had to stay after because she's my ride. I'm 9 years old. And I remember like probably once a month, once a quarter, like she would just go get a big old tray of sandwiches and she would just put it in the room where the janitors were. And I was like, and I used to just see how much they used to just love her and how they were filled with joy when she was around. And I didn't understand it early on. And so the contrast came was obviously when I went to college and I would come back and I was in town, you go by and see your mom at school. It's kind of common when your mom's a school teacher, because mom wants that. She wants her college young man to come to the school so she can take you on the tour of like, hey, my son's home. He's doing this. He's playing football. And, my mom always had the wall, the glass where it's just like all she did was put the accomplishments of all her kids, magazine articles, book covers, and things of that nature. And I remember when we used to go up and down the hall, she's introduced me to teachers, but she would introduce me to janitors and cafeteria workers, not just her colleagues, janitors and cafeteria workers. And I remember one day and I was just like, Mom, like, how did you get so cool with all of these people in that way? And she said, Ahmard, they go through so much. So many people think that they're invisible. They don't pay attention to them. And sometimes they even treat them badly. They trash their rooms and just like, oh, well, somebody else is going to clean it up. Like they do nothing to help them out. And her whole career, she always honored them because she said, not only because you talked about beneficial, like you're beneficial, you can be benefit to everyone. What I learned early on, and my mom wasn't doing this for some kind of benefit somewhere else, but if my mom needed to get into the school on a Saturday evening when it's locked, you think that janitor has all the keys? She was able to not only have access to when she needed. I mean, we're talking like emergency situation. She can call that janitor and that janitor will stop what he or she is doing and come there and unlock that door for my mom. When my mom went to the cafeteria, they would just put together a plate for her that's not even on the menu. And they would just hand her her tray of food. It may not even been stuff that was served to everyone else. Like she always had favor with the janitor workers. And I remember it because I put that in my book because it taught me such a valuable lesson to honor those regardless of where they rank in what we call society. Because how beneficial is a janitor to a school, to any business? You don't clean the bathroom. You don't clean those toilets. You don't clean those hallways. You have different professional people walking in and out of those hallways. If that trash is not empty, we have a problem. So why don't we honor them more? They are part of the community we're talking about. And you need all levels of this. That's why I was talking about the no child left behind. No child left behind means no one goes ahead. Unfortunately, we need garbage men. We need someone who can take care of the infrastructure, right? People who get under the streets and clean that out so that we can have clean water. They're not any less than someone else. And by the way, some of those dudes are making better money than some of the, these office workers who wear certain ties. But that's another conversation. But we need community. We have to find a way, whether it's from the legal standpoint of things, no fault divorce was really big. The birth control pill was really big. All of these things contributed. And of course, the feminism, Miss Independent, I don't need a man, screw these ladies, all of those sentiments just build up over time and taking God out of everything. All of those things combined together made one big pot of gumbo that's not good. It's tar, it's toxic. It didn't work. It's not working. So I think a couple of societal things need to happen, because the first thing does need to happen to be able to rebuild the family. But from a community standpoint, just, man, I don't know. Trying to encourage people to, man, what you just asked is a $10 billion question. How to bring people back together, because it's like you always hear, we're like, all these deadbeat dads, they don't want to stand in and stick in with their family. Is that 100% true? Because I know a lot of guys who actually want to be part of their family, and the mom's like, nope, I don't want you here. There's a lot of that going on. But it's like society is just like, okay, dad's not there. Dad's a piece of garbage. He doesn't want to be there for his kid. When in actuality, not only is he being blocked, but he's being forcibly pushed out. I'll take your money and your insurance, but I don't want you there. Uncomfortable conversations no one wants to have. Why is there such an incentive structure for ladies to break apart the families? Why? You ever been to family court before? My goodness. It's like you go in there and it's just like you're just wrong by default. It's like, hey, I want to go in and do the right thing. Let's work this out or whatever. There's no working out. I need that check and I need this insurance, and you can see him once a month. It's like, wait, I like, and we're talking about good men. I'm not talking about the true deadbeats, the dude, he's got 8 kids from 6 women. I'm not talking about that guy. I'm talking about a guy who's a postal worker. I'm talking about a guy who's a school teacher. I'm talking about a guy who's a middle manager or something. I'm talking about the assistant manager at Best Buy who had a wife and 2 kids, and out of nowhere, she just woke up one day and said, I'm not happy. And she's out. And he's got limited access to the kids. No one wants to have that conversation. But that conversation needs to be had for us to get back to the community structure, because community structure starts with what? Families. It's not a bunch of broken puzzle pieces. It's families. Because this family can benefit you. And then we have the community. We have communities around here where housing structures are put in place, where there's an accountability, where I look out for your kids, you look out for mine. But right now, we just got a bunch of loose, made up homes, 3 generations. You got grandmother, mother, and daughter now has a kid, and they all live in a house together. That's not functional. That's not what's needed in society. That's not a good thing. I know we like to get it like, yeah, I can do this all by myself. No, you can't. And we've taken all of these structures, we've taken all of the guardrails off of these things. And so now it's like, okay, so now what we do? And it's like, we have to rebuild the family. But the answers that I would have to rebuild the family, I don't know if society can do it. Are they going to take no-fault divorce out of the court system? Probably not. Are they going to take the incentive to, irreconcilable differences? Are we going to take that? Are we going to make it harder to get divorced? Because if we don't, we're going to get more of this. Are we going to practice a little bit more celibacy to where you don't have 4 kids by the time you're 18 with no husband? Are we as men going to have a little bit more penis discipline to where we're not just out there just having unprotected sex with whomever? Because again, I'm not 100% blaming the ladies. Like, we obviously have an accountability factor as well, but it's just the incentive structures for ruining the homes does rest on the lady side of things. Because I know too many men who didn't want their families to be broken apart, and they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. It was over whether they were against it or not. And until we can do that, I would tell your audience, because we are in a fallen state right now, I would tell your audience, get with a local church, get with support groups around there, get around some good, righteous people, some faith-based people, because we have to start small, right? We have to start sort of one small community at a time and then grow from there. Like they always say, make your bed first, make your bed, clean up your room, right? Clean your kitchen, right? Clean your shave up, go get a haircut, clean up your own body first, and then we can grow from there. But community is important. And I think some of the steps we've laid out here are going to be the start to community. It's a much deeper conversation and a much more draconian way to fix it, right? It's going to take some drastic changes that, take some of those entitlements off the table, right? Cut food benefits, housing benefits, cut those things in half, where it's not just so easy to just go out and have 4 kids and be like, well, my rent will be $22 and, I can put me and my 4 kids in here. We need to take those incentive structures off the table. And that's going to take some time. But that would be my short-term fix for a long-term problem.
There's a lot that has to be fixed. And when there's so much that has to be fixed, it can be difficult to know where you want to start. If you can just think about a room that's dirty, you might say, well, where do I begin? Right? Well, maybe taking out the dirty clothes, putting those in a hamper, Maybe then putting the clean clothes, hanging them up, ironing them, folding them, putting them away. What's left, right? And we just begin that process of just doing the first step, the second step, and so on. When we're dealing with the community and changing how people are intrinsically, internally, we have to start small. If you have a lake that is putrid, it's toxic, you can keep pouring water into it all day, and it's going to take a long time for you to clean that lake. However, if you just take a glass, you just take some of that lake water and you start pouring some fresh, clean water in there, eventually that glass is going to be a lot more clean. It's not going to be as cloudy because we're going to be putting in fresh water, getting rid of it, but we do it on a small scale rather than the large scale first. So we do have to look at pockets in our life, in our community, whether it be organizations, church, nonprofits, whatever it be, start there. And then understand that you make an impact in your community. Understand your value, understand your worth, and don't be easily corralled by the American dream, what's popular, the idea or the concept that you have to go in it alone. A two-parent household is the best institution for raising a family. If you don't have a two-parent household, understand that you don't need a blood father or blood mother. You can give yourself a figure, a father figure, a mother figure that can help guide you, that can teach you, and that you can appreciate. Doesn't matter if they're a janitor or if they're a CEO. You're going to learn from that individual. You build from there. So yes, we have a lot of broken stuff in our community, in our life, our families, but we can find the fix together. We don't have to go in it alone. And I know some of the work that you do, Ahmad, is helping bridge that gap, creating the communities, creating the areas for people to come together, to learn from each other, to grow together. And from there, that's where change, true change, can begin. It starts on a small level, and then we take it to the bigger and greater scale. You and I could talk all day, Ahmad, because we just have that same type of energy, trying to help people, get people into a good mindset. We need to understand that everyone's going to be in a different place right now. They're going to listen to this episode and they're going to say, there's a lot of good things that happen in this episode. They might take some action. They might not take as much action. Someone might not even take any action, right? Begin to make small steps. From there, that's where you can start to see your life for what it truly can be rather than what it is. You know, as a mental performance coach, you're helping people with their mind. You're helping people get into a different type of mindset of belief, of empowerment. And it's important that we get back to that, because if we just go down this path of where we're going, we're going to end up a place that we probably don't want to be. What I would like from you, Ahmad, is I know you're writing some stuff down. So if you want to touch base on that, you definitely can. But to share with us any last words, and then after that, let the audience know where they can find you, website, book, etc.
Yeah, it's been a very, very heavy conversation. And like you said, we could run this for hours. But I do want, because some of the people in your audience, like you said, are going to look and say, you know what, everything around me is terrible. There's going to be someone out there, or 70% of my life is terrible. The other 30% is okay. But they wake up a lot of times and they just they don't feel like there's any good in their life. I have a couple of exercises that I do use. One of the main ones I use is it's called "What's Good Here." I've used this. I've used this a lot in ministry. I've used it with teenagers. I've used it with grown people. I've used it for everybody. And you have people who have pity parties. Like, they come and everything is just bad. Oh, just came out of a storm, going into a storm, coming out of a storm. The next storm's coming. It's just like, yeah, we know, and it's ironic. There's actually a storm all around me right now while we're recording this, and I'm just like, I hope they don't hear the rain. It's just beating down my windows right now, but it's part of life. The exercise is called "What's Good Hearing." I tell your audience to go to a store and get those long pads, those yellow pads, the real long ones. Like, I want you to get a lot of lines in it, and I want you to write a line down the middle, and on the left side, I want you to write everywhere where you feel like your life sucks, and I mean all of it, like everything you complain about, everything you post on social that's not cool, everything you hate about your kids, everything you hate about your job, everything you hate about your parents, everything you hate about your upbringing. I want you to dump all of what you think is the worst of your life. I want you to hold nothing back. I want the full pity party. I want you to have one of the situations where you're going into a psychiatrist's office and they just let you go and you're nonstop for like 30 minutes of just garbage. Just dump it all out, throw up everything. I want you to I want you to lay all of it out. If you need to flip the page over, keep going and write all that stuff down. Then I want you to take that pad and I want you to put it away somewhere. Minimum of 4 hours. Sometimes you can even go a day, whatever. And I want you to go about your life. I want you to take some quiet time and think about, it's almost like you put out so much negative energy that you need to kind of regain your strength, right? I want you to just sit down, and whether you're a person of faith, maybe this will be a time to go into some prayer. If you're into something else, some meditation, but I want you to sit still, and I don't want you to say a word. I just want you to just sit there. It's not easy to do, but I want you to just sit there in a room and just be quiet. Just sit. It's almost like stealing of the waters. Just let the waters, don't throw a rock in it. Just shut up. I just want you to sit. And I want you to go about your day. Minimum of 4 hours. When you come back on the other side of that you put this so bad, I want you to write down why what you think is so seemingly bad is a great moment in your life. Why it was great. Why was it great that you saw that your mother was doing drugs when you were 7 years old? Why was that great for you? Your father getting locked up when you were in high school. Why was that great for you? You lost an opportunity in high school. Why was that good for you? You didn't get into the college you wanted to get into. Why was that good for you? It's going to take some time to go through that and dig through all of those, because one or two things are going to happen with your audience. They're either going to realize that there was some good that came from that because it led them to something greater and made them work harder in other areas, or they realize and look down at that and say, why am I even worried about that? Why is that even a thing? And then you just get to start scratching stuff out like, this no longer serves no purpose in my life. Like, why do I even care what this person thinks? Why am I worried about an 8th grade crush? Those things. And so that's one of the things. The What's Good Here has been extremely powerful. It will be time. You will cry over this, possibly. You will get really emotional. You'll get angry. All the spectrum of emotions are going to come out with this. And you know what? I want all of them. Throw it against the wall, cry over it, be pissed off at it, be all that. I want you to just let it all out. And then, what's good here? Or this no longer serves a purpose in my life. On top of that, a couple other little things which we'll address in my newest book is the 3G thing that I do. And I know we're up to 5G now, but 3G just works out better. Where every morning when you wake up, you put, a pad next to you, a journal or something. And every morning you write 2 things you're grateful for and 1 goal every day. That's it. 2 things you're grateful for and 1 goal. It's called the 3G experience. That's all you need to do. Roll over. First thing, boom, write down what I'm grateful for. And if someone says, I don't know what I'm grateful for, if you just need to put every day, I'm alive, then you can start with that. Because being alive is a blessing. I know for some people, they were like, oh, the alternative better. No, it's not. The alternative is never better. Life is beautiful. Life can be hard, but life is still beautiful. It's up to us to make it fulfilling. And of course, 1 goal. Like you said, start small. Like, stop trying to put together these lofty things. You know what? I'm grateful for these 2 things. And today I want to do this 1 thing. Just one thing. I want to accomplish 1 thing. And you know what that 1 thing can be? Washing your dishes, making your bed, do something at work, making your kids lunch. We think that goals are supposed to be like, yeah, man, I created, the metaverse. No, a goal can be as simple as cleaning up your area rug in your living room. It's something, because when you're down and out, you need to find a win somewhere. And the 3G helps you realize what you're grateful for and gives you a small attainable goal to do every day. And you can expand on that. You want to go to 5G, you want to do that or whatever. Those are 2 of the 3. And of course, life is not meant to be lived alone. We talked a lot about community. I want your audience to go find an AA member. And I'm not talking about, I love my people who are dealing with alcoholism, and I want them to get the help. But AA, in this sense, out of the book, is called Accountability Ally. I want you to get someone who's close to you, but not too close to you. I want someone who loves and respects you, but doesn't idolize you. Like, don't get a fan, like someone who just loves everything you do. You want someone who can hold you accountable. Someone who, when you get out of line, it's just like, okay, when the real Michael shows up, let me know, right? Michael needs to go regroup. Ahmard, I need you. Because my mentor did that to me one day. He was like, I don't know who this guy is. So when Ahmard shows up, he can call me back. But now we're off the phone for now. And he hung up on me. You want an accountability ally, someone you can share your goals, your life goals with, And not only can they put a plan together for you, and even if they can't put a plan together for you, they can hold you accountable and checking in with you and saying, hey, where are we on you getting this job? Where are we on starting this business? Where are we on writing this book? Where are we on doing certain things? And so you want to have what's called an AA. And really and truly, that would be some of the takeaways that I would want your audience to do. And obviously we can share on places to find me, because I do have some resources that I can share with them as well. But these three things, no matter where you are in your journey of life, I think those three things can at least get you to a point where you're seeing life a little bit differently, and you're understanding that there is some value to your life and that you do bring a lot to the table. You just need to discover what that is. And I think that these three things will help you unpack the old, live in the new, and have someone who will help you get through those things.
And where's the best place that people can find you if they're looking for you?
AhmardVital.com. That's AhmardVital. And on all the social media platforms, it's all Ahmard Vital. I mean, there's no alias. I mean, my company name is different, but if you need to find me, Ahmard Vital is the best way to go about that. For your audience, I also want to give them access. A new book just was released on January 3rd of this year, but my publisher made some copies available. So they can go to booknowwhat.com. Booknowwhat.com. They can get a free digital copy and preview the book. It is available on all platforms, wherever you like to buy books, but at least you can get a chance to check it out and preview it. That's a gift to your audience for sticking in here with us and taking this time to go over different ways where we can make the world a little bit better than it was when we came into it. For me, that's one of the big missions I have, is to become the man I needed when I was 17. I'm driven by that, gratitude, service, and impact. That's where I want everything in my life, every action I take throughout the day, I want to include those things. And so if your audience wants to reach out to me, they're more than welcome to reach out to me via website, on social media, Instagram, I'm very active. Facebook, I'm very active. info@ahmardvital.com. If they need to email me something, I make myself as available as I can for your audience and those who are in need. I'm here to be a servant, not to just necessarily be served, but to be a servant. And so I definitely want to be part of more solutions than the problem. So my line is open to them, and I look forward to hearing from some of them when this episode is available for them, and looking forward to hearing from them.
All right, perfect. And I'll put all of your social links, website in the description box below. That book link for people to get your book from Amazon, things like that, where they have to pay. I'll put that in the description box. But for that free download, that PDF, they got to earn that. They got to make it from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode. So I typically don't put the free stuff. They have to watch it. They have to earn it, because people can easily come watch the first 10, 20 minutes of it. Oh, it's a free book. Let me download that, right? I want you to get the whole bit of what we talked about today, because what we did talk about today range from so many different, I guess you could say, points that need to be adjusted in our life and our society. And, just looking at the 3Gs, I'm always grateful for life, grateful for my family, grateful for what I do. But today I am grateful for you, Ahmard, for coming on and spending some time with us and just sharing your wisdom and your energy, because I knew when I was setting up this episode that you were going to be a wonderful guest, because what we do here at Rearden Concepts and here in Coaching in Sessions, the podcast, is we bring on other wonderful coaches like yourself who can help people get to a better mindset, whether it be one step at a time or a big leap. They get to choose, right? So are you feeling hungry, right? You want to eat the whole plate, go for it, right? But if you just want to dabble and get some finger foods, we can do that too. Everything we talked about has so much meaning and so much wisdom, so many nuggets. And I want people to understand what we do is of servants, is of helping people, because we want to see everyone prosper, everyone grow. And that's the whole point, right? How can we help you? We're not looking at, well, what can you do for us, right? How can we help you, right? And that's the goal. If you haven't figured that out, reach out to Ahmard and begin that process of cultivating a relationship, and then understanding your true power, building the community, and then building the mindset that you need. I want to thank you so much, Ahmard, for coming on. Great conversation today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you all taking the time today.
When it's slow, higher heights to balance out the lows. Can't ride the wave because you ain't got a boat. All you only need to know basis. There's a water, y'all can't fuck with my oasis. Reason y'all not winning, y'all don't know the fucking basis.